I would say when it comes to like the politics of crypto and this emerging technology, a lot of people are attracted to it because it's being called like this censorship resistant financial tool or investment. But so recently with Canada and Coinbase specifically, we saw them kind of doing something that to me seemed against the whole like ethos and the whole point of crypto and Web3, which is kind of that anonymity and sovereignty that comes with it. So it's like anything over $1,000, you have to like fully disclose both parties and it's being traced and all of that.
I have a different view on all of this.
Sure, yeah.
Go to the bank, take out $10,000. They ask you where it's going
Mhm.
and who it's for
Right.
in cash.
Mhm.
Right. So you can't use cash to do a lot of stuff because it is monitored. If you're going to try and put a large amount of money, if you're going to use cash to buy a house, they're going to ask you KYC, AML. That's been in place forever. So all of us use credit cards. All of us on Twitter, using Google, on Instagram. Every single thing that we do is being monitored by numerous parties, and our money is already being monitored, and we're restricted in cash. So it is what it is. Again, we can fight against it, but we need to find in this world a space for government too. Because if we try and throw out government, then they're going to fight us, and we've got a bigger fight on our hands. The best thing is to work with them, allow the adoption to happen, and then it becomes so powerful that there's nothing they can do about it. But if you try and have the fight too early, they do what they did in Canada, which is they force people to act in certain ways. But once it's too big, they can't. So, and some people come at this with different philosophies. Some people are freedom absolutists and privacy absolutists, but they will tell you that on Twitter and on their Instagram account, and all of that is being monitored, recorded, everything. So, it's kind of slightly crazy because that doesn't exist in the world. And, people talk about, well, they're going to know where our money goes. They know every single payment you have ever made in your entire lifetime. And the government can request it in seconds, as can other third parties from your bank. So, what are we hiding from? Now, the movement of money, this gives us a chance of having more ability to escape bad regimes, if the government is oppressive. It gives you that ability, but it's far from guaranteed. Much like gold gives you that ability, but it's far from guaranteed. So it's better at the margin, but everything on a blockchain is recorded. And everybody can track everything, which is why every time a big scam happens, the FBI and NSA track it down almost instantaneously.
So I guess there's not really reason to be concerned as far as like keeping your which wallet you use, whether it's Coinbase or whether you have like a cold storage, as far as I guess government regulation goes, or because that's another conversation too, right? Is regulation, and does the community want it? What does that look like? And I guess like what are the like consequences of that?
Yeah, so in terms of wallets, there's nothing we can do about that. But wallets, having a cold storage wallet makes yours more secure, and the ability for you to cross borders. So let's say you don't like the government you're in. Let's say you're living in Russia or you're in Ukraine and you have to leave. Well, your wealth becomes instantly transportable. So that is a beauty of this system. In terms of regulation, there's going to be some sort of grand compromise. But what we're learning is that the more people adopt this before the regulation happens, the more voters they have to fight against if they're going to be hard on it.
Mm.
And particularly because of the demographic, it's this big millennial group that's the big users of this. These are voters who were not really big voters, but now they've got an issue that they would vote for because they have participated in this whole ecosystem. So I think we're going to see a lot of pushback on excess regulation. There'll be some regulation, that's fine. That's the compromise we will have to reach. But we will push back against bad regulation, regulation that makes it restrictive. Canada did what it did probably because it was still early in the adoption that massive numbers of voters couldn't say, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, it becomes harder to do. Although we saw that China did it. I mean, they just huge numbers of users. They just said, sorry, you can't use this any longer.
Right, and I think that's the terrifying thing because it's like, well, what happens if if that crackdown does happen?
So if you store on a cold storage wallet, what we saw is a bunch of Chinese going to Singapore, setting up accounts in Singapore, and they've got their crypto.
Oh,
So
there you go.
you still got it. And it's pretty difficult once you leave the borders for you to be stop being used unless you're tracked down for criminal offences, in which case Interpol and the other kind of globalized way of dealing with crime kicks into place. But if you're just an individual, you're free.
Right, and then that's also been one of the talking points from the people that are pro regulation is that it's just rampant with all of this criminal activity, and they're just trying to keep the consumer safe, which I've heard is kind of debunked. Like that's not really true. That there's still way more criminal behavior with fiat currency than with cryptocurrency. And then also it's like, well, if you really cared about the users or the consumers' finances, like you can go up to your eyeballs in student debt and no one really cares about that. Or you can have 20 credit cards and no one cares about that. So I'm really not convinced that you care about my financial well being because there's all of these other indicators that say otherwise.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a sham. And it's disgraceful that, you can go to Vegas, blow all your paycheck, but you can't buy a token. It's ludicrous. Or you can't invest in a VC. All you need is to tell people this is risky, you can lose your money.
Hmm.
And there's a number of ways you can lose your money. But yes, to think it's acceptable for students to have, $100,000, $150,000 of debt, it's crazy. And then not give them a chance to make that money back. It's wrong. And it's not just at cryptocurrency level, it's at all investment level. What it does is perpetuates middlemen. You're not smart enough or rich enough to do this. So you have to come to me and I will help you do this. And I will charge you a layer of fees to make it possible. That's why it doesn't go away. There's too much vested interest by the financial industry. But, it's wrong. It's morally wrong. It's doing the opposite. It's perpetuating the rich poor divide. It's lowering the opportunity set for people who are either younger or less well off, and it's not fair.